Hello. Let's get this review started. We're starting out with energy here, and I actually like the following slide a little bit better because it gives you the definitions. But I'm just going to go over a couple of these here. Like number two is a really good example of potential and kinetic energy. Technically, the gasoline that's in the storage tank is potential, but then if I were to turn on the car, that would turn into kinetic, right? So I could technically put that it's both because both is one of your options there. Um, the skier at the top of the mountain, same thing, right? If he's at the top, it's potential. Here he's the mountain, right? He's up here at the top. That's my potential energy. But then once he starts going down, that's going to turn into kinetic energy. So let's go over the definitions of this stuff. So energy is the ability to do work, and remember we talked about work also. So kinetic energy is going to be energy of motion, and potential energy is stored energy. Remember, with potential, it has to have the ability to move later. For example, like somebody, you could draw a soccer ball. And if just the soccer ball by itself is sitting there, is not potential energy. But if I draw it like at the top of a hill, or if I draw a foot that is about to kick it, then now it's potential energy because it has the possibility of moving later. We've got some stuff here that asks you to identify if it's potential or kinetic energy or both. You've got some notes on this that are yellow and green where we had to cut and paste and glue in the whether it was potential or kinetic energy. So mechanical motion, right? That's actually movement. So that's a synonym for that would be kinetic energy. So we can put kinetic energy here. You can come up with an example of how this is kinetic energy, like a car or a clock or something like that. Um, we've got some more here. I'm going to go down to chemical energy. This one is both, right? I've got potential and I've got kinetic here. So, for example, a slice of pizza would be potential energy, but then once I eat it and then I use it to run to my next class, that would be turning into kinetic energy. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next page. This is basically examples, and then you identify what kind of energy it is. So falling rocks from the top of a mountain would be mechanical. You could also talk about how this is gravity that's making it fall. Release of energy from the sun. This one's going to be a bunch of them. I chose D and C and F. Will be all of those. Stuff that they love to ask about is food. So that's one that's super important right here. So make sure you know that one right. This would be chemical energy, and then it could turn into mechanical because I use that to go, run to my next class or whatever. Another thing that I wanted to remind you about here is conduction, convection, and radiation. So remember, conduction has to do with touch. This is also energy transformations, but basically this is all heat. How heat gets transferred. So we've got conduction through touch, and then we've got convection. This has to do with density, okay? When we have hot stuff floats up and cold stuff sinks down. So this is density. And then we also talked about radiation. Hopefully I'm not misspelling this stuff. And that's when stuff travels through space. For example, we talked about the sun and how here's Earth, right? And even though there's empty space through here, we still feel the heat from the sun. Okay. Our next section, you have to understand how energy changes form, right? So we talked about the law of conservation of energy and how energy is not created or destroyed. So here we need to understand that energy doesn't just pop out of nowhere or doesn't just disappear. It's changing form. It's changing from one kind to another. So a battery that runs a moving toy, the battery is going to be chemical, and then the moving toy would be mechanical, or I could say it was also kinetic, right? Um, a solar panel would be radiant to electrical, a person lifting a chair. This one, a lot of people ask me about this one. It's chemical because of your food. That's how you get your energy to do everything, right? And then it turns to mechanical, or you can also use kinetic because you're moving, you're lifting the chair. A couple more I want to go through. A toaster. This is electrical because I plug it in and then it turns into heat or thermal. They mean the same thing, so I'm telling you both just in case you see either one. Photosynthesis is another super important one. So this is radiant or light energy, right, that turns into chemical. Think about it, right? You eat your vegetables and that's your food right there. Food is always chemical. That's one of the favorites that gets asked. Okay, and that's the end of part 1. We're going to do part 2 with speed next.